My stepmom just gave me an ultimatum. Either I don't tell her secret that she's cheating on my father, which by the way I have evidence for, or she's going to tell him about all the bad stuff that I've been up to in school, with boys, I mean you name it. She said she would even tell him about the tattoo I got. Guys, I don't know what to do. Do I come clean and just tell him everything, or do I keep it a secret? I just found my stepmother leaving a hotel with a man. I'm in shock and I don't know what to do. I was at a friend's house for some music rehearsals. We got the studio at his place. He lives across the street from a hotel downtown. After we finished everything, I was coming out of the building, but I had to hide so she wouldn't see me. My mouth dropped open and I even asked my friend to hide too, so she wouldn't see them. She knows them and could know that would be a problem. I was talking to them and they didn't know what I should do either. They gave me a lot of advice and many options, but now I've come here to know what you think. But first, a background on my turbulent relationship with my stepmother, better known as Rena. Rena married my dad just a few years after my mom's passing. She was the one who proposed to my dad, and she was so insistent that by the third time he accepted, almost with a gun to his head. Just out of sheer social pressure, see, his friends are just as toxic as she is, and she made him think that it was only the right choice to make. She and half the city knows about my father's good financial position. Actually, they know two things: how much money my father has and how much time he spends in church. But she dared to go further and decided to date him to elevate her status. Well, I already knew that, and that's why my relationship with her has been the worst in the world. I won't say it's a Cinderella type of story, but it's worse. Because she treats me like a slave. At least sometimes she remembers my existence. I can't tell how many times she didn't even look at me for school because she literally forgot I existed. She's very young, only about 10 years younger than my father, and an only child, so she's used to having everything she asked for without even being able to help others selflessly. That's why we've had so many conflicts in our co-living. Even though at first I tried not to be the child who would hate her stepmother for, quote, no apparent reason. It's kind of comical that this cheating situation occurs now, because for years I tried to find some reasonable excuse for Dad to stay the hell away from her. Still, I can understand disliking her, but other than that, she's a good person, at least so far. The only thing I could tell we have in common is the love that we have for my father. Even if it's only for show, she learned how to love and live with him. Or that's what I thought. I think that I should talk it over with her because, well, there's a reason why I haven't gone ahead to tell on her outright, and that's because she works for a ceramics store, which is always offering their services to company stores and, of course, hotels. The difference is that her attitude wasn't the most, working hour vibe, if you know what I mean. She seemed to leave the site happier than usual, and not in the sense that we completed a sale, but someone completed a sale to me, if you know what I mean. And that's the perfect reason to be able to destroy something that I wanted broken. But there's another problem exactly, and that's, in a few days, it's my father's wedding anniversary with Rena. It's complicated, see? It's complicated because they're both very happy, and I feel that it would be worse to talk to my dad at this time than after the anniversary because they're planning to have a trip, which is already paid for, and they're gonna go to the beach. Just the two of them. It pains me to believe that she's cheating on my father right under his nose, and that I have the power to do something about it, and I continue to stay quiet. Well, that's why I would rather just let him enjoy the momentary happiness until the time is right to reveal the absolute truth. So, I talked to Father the other day, and now that I remember, and he just told me something that's what makes this whole tale bitter. Outside of college stuff and such, we don't always talk about our lives. He doesn't even know I'm in a band with my friends, and when he finished breakfast, he told me he was in love with Rena. Despite being together for so many years, he said he didn't feel as much love for her as he had for a few months. Now, this insight's harder for me to swallow because I've read that people tend to change their behavior after they start an affair. Whether for better or for worse. In this case, with Rena being more loving, it's synonymous that something good has been happening in her life. And my dad's not a part of that happiness, you know.
He's not even aware of it.
After that, Dad told me that he brought it up because of the things I was going through with Rena. And the thing is that she and I have decided not to talk to each other for about 2 years now. That's right, we live in the same house and we don't even say good morning to each other. Well, this is because, gosh, I'm so embarrassed to tell this story. But at one of my early high school parties, there were a lot of older guys and I was a little uncomfortable, but even so, I stayed there with my friends. Once everything was over, Rena offered to pick us up and take us to our place. The thing is, as I told you, she forgot this little detail. So we were forced to stay longer than we wanted to while everyone was pressuring me to leave. I tried to contact Rena, but she had her phone turned off. We ended up ordering a taxi at 3 a.m. with the little money that we had ended up staying at one of my friend's house. With nobody wanting to talk to me after that, what was Rena's excuse? She stayed up watching a series on the investigation channel and fell asleep with her phone off.
Well, that's the opposite of being a responsible adult.
I told her so, and that's when the snowball effect started.
We said very, very harsh things to one another.
So loud that, if my father had not intervened, we might have even come to blow and punches. It was then that I decided to ice shoulder her. It was mutual. I iced her. That's why I was afraid that the silence would be broken when I found her leaving the hotel. Dad told me how much he was in love with her precisely because he knew the tension between us, and he wanted to somehow save what time we had left before I left the house for good. He says he doesn't want to live with that pang of conscience that he could have done more. There have been times when he goes on trips, and I ended up being with her for weeks without talking. It's too uncomfortable of a situation since going 2 weeks without even talking to someone while I'm cooking, up in the bathroom, or going to class is weird. Ironically, those were the most peaceful days of my life. Since I found Rena leaving the hotel, I've seen her behavior, and I do feel that she has changed a bit. She's nicer to my dad and gives off an angelic aura that maybe he could, it could be fake. I wish it wasn't fake and that it's just something between her and me, but now I'm curious to know what the whole thing is about, but what do I do?
Follow her around like some kind of private investigator?
That's why I came here to tell you my case and see if you could give me some clarity on what to do. Because at the pace I'm going, I might end up in the middle of this madness.
It's all fake. I may consider the remote possibility of settling matters with Rena in the future. Distant future, but only if it is fake.
But if it turns out to be true, I'll start thinking about how to tell my father. On how and when, but it's not an easy thing to do when you have to ruin somebody's happiness, you know. Well, of course, the biggest constant that my friends have told me is to talk to Rena, because only then can I be sure. I don't know how feasible this is, as it could cause a conflict like the one above. Just by telling her one thing, she's been able to explode in the past, and even if she makes hints these things could and would terminally end our relationship for good, I'd better wait to see what answers you guys can even give me, as I know that amongst the comment boxes there are psychologists and professionals in these situations. But hey, for now, I plan to tell my father everything when his anniversary with Rena is over. Not tell him outright that she's cheating on him, but that he should be on the lookout for it. Updates. Number 1. Oh my gosh, guys, I may be a bad person, but I just could not help myself. It's been only 3 days since my previous note, and after so many comments, I had to make sure my suspicions were true. I made comments because everyone told me to, quote, check her phone, but that's something I've never done in my life, not even with my boyfriends when I feel something weird is up. But my curiosity killed the cat, and I saw Rena so happy that I felt something was right. At dinner, she didn't mention anything about her work, she just looked at her phone from time to time and smiled slightly. I know those attitudes because those were just like those of a friend when she started dating her current boyfriend.
She was hiding something,
and I couldn't stand it and had to check it out on my own. Now, she went into the shower and left her phone charging in the living room.
She always takes about an hour bathing.
And after a few minutes, I knew I had to act or else I would not have a chance like this again. It's amazing how I still remember her phone password after several years of zero contact between us. I went straight to instant messaging and nothing, then to text message, and there I found some pretty over-the-top conversations with a man named Jack. Although I could tell it was a fake name,
And trust me when I tell you they were strong conversations where they set up specific times and places to meet. It was someone from work, because they would always say to discuss office things in hotels they already knew. And they would take a few moments to quote, check out the room as well. When I saw how old the conversations were, I knew they dated back almost a year. I almost fainted. I got goosebumps so big when I felt her coming out of the shower. She didn't even give me a chance to take a screenshot and send them to me, or even take a picture of the conversation with my phone, and this makes me feel so bad. I ran out of the place and I pretended like nothing happened, but I feel like I did something wrong because after a while, still in a towel, Rena said the first words to me in a long time. "Did you take my phone? Did you touch it?" And I, being on the laptop, just shook my head, no, and she left. After that, I sighed and felt a sweat pour down my back. But now the problem is how to tell my father. Besides, how did she know something had happened to her phone? Did I leave it in the wrong direction? Or did I leave one of the apps open? I don't know, but I can't let myself get carried away. I'm afraid that because of this, she'll delete the conversation, change numbers, or use some other method to erase the evidence completely. If so, how can I help my father? It's Rena's word against the word of someone who hates Rena. Dad will think it's another one of those occasions where his daughter's trying to get rid of her evil stepmother. And it could not be more untrue. I just want to protect him. Please tell me what I can do to fix all of this, I'm begging. I don't want father to feel bad, but I don't want him to hate me either. I don't have the heart or mind strong enough to just ignore the issue. Update number 2. Rena's a despicable, evil person, and I'm on record saying it. First of all, thank you for the support you've given me for 4 days ago on the last update. It seemed as if the whole comment box came together to tell me that I had to stand up to Rena, telling her that I knew the truth, so I did it. I confronted her, reached across the table, and broke my silence. I told her straight up, I know everything. See, she played crazy and innocent, saying she didn't know what I was going on about. She also acted surprised that I broke my silence. But then I told her I knew about her secret affair with the guy in her office, and when I mentioned his name, that's when I got her attention. She asked me to sit down and say what I wanted, like my terms and conditions, and I told her just stop doing that. I felt like such an idiot at the time. I don't know what to say. I didn't. I did the one from the shows and the movies, if she doesn't tell him I was type thing. And then all hell broke loose. Guys, she threatened me. She told me the following would happen. I would shut my mouth and she would avoid mentioning everything she knew about me to my dad. I was the one who was frozen and I asked her what she meant, and she started mentioning my record. I never explained it before, but I have to admit I'm not a saint of devotion in any way. I wasn't an exemplary student in high school, and to this day my father doesn't even know about it. Today I'm someone completely different, but I've managed to keep this under wraps. Getting intimate, I used to drink quite a bit at parties, get piercings, kiss a lot of boys. I remember at one party I kissed 3 boys and 1 girl in less than an hour, and even get a tattoo on my hip, which was the reason I never went back to the beach or pools with my father. He, despite the hectic business life he leads, is a religious person, very morals, and would have a heart attack from her to the moon if he knew just half the things I've done. For God's sake. I even once convinced the professor to pass my subject, and it's thanks to that I can now be in college. Well, don't want to get into that, but to top it all off, Dad's the one paying my tuition. That's why he works so hard too, so that I don't have to resort to student loans that I'll be paying off in the next century. And if he ever finds out about all this, it's fair to say my life will be completely over. I told her not to dare do anything like that, since we would both be hurt. And most importantly, it would hurt my father, but that was what she wanted. She starts to tell me about how it all had started, as an office fling, but I stopped her in her tracks. I didn't want to know anything about it. As in the very idea disgusted me. So, I asked her not to do that to Dad, but she told me that in this case, I should also tell her everything I did. When I asked her how she knew about all those things, she told me that one of her friends was a substitute teacher right there at my school, and they had me on file there, to the point where even the janitor also had to watch out for me. The conversation ended bitterly with her saying that she would, quote, try to resolve the situation at hand. And I just had to bite my tongue to say no more. Is that hard for her to get rid of a relationship that is objectively wrong for her to have? Now, I'm up against a rock and a hard place, and I would just like to know anybody's perspective on what I should do. If there's an option other than commenting to my father, I would greatly appreciate it. Update number 3. Hey guys, it's me. So, thanks to the user who told me about the idea of someone else revealing the truth to my dad. I put it into practice and I think it worked. You see, exactly a week ago when I wrote the update on Rena's subject, there was a comment, I think it's currently deleted, that said about having someone else, by mere chance, find out about it and come out to my dad as gossip. That way Rena would not have to rat me out since in theory I wasn't the one who revealed the truth. The only thing my dad could be upset with me about is if he finds out that I knew all along and never decided to tell him. But how he found out about it, I doubt Rena would be that petty and mean enough to involve me in a problem of hers. But even I doubt that. So, the plan to some extent worked because I talked it over with one of the women at church, an old lady who's very close to my dad and who works selling homemade yogurt at his company. I told her about Rena's deception, and she told me that she was a little happy because she didn't see Rena in good light either, since in the beginning when she joined the church with Dad, she gave off a spoiled brat vibe. So together we formed a plan, giving the alibi, and she had just to go to Dad's office as usual and then stop him in his tracks. She told me that they talked, and she had told him loud and clear, "You're being played, son." Well, guys, at first Dad laughed because he thought it was just a bad joke. But when he saw the lady's face, he knew it was true. According to what the woman told me, he felt confused and started to make some phone calls. Well, that was yesterday, and I feel it escalate a bit because he didn't come home last night. Rena was worried, and I admit, I was too, since he never leaves without a warning, and now he's coming back reeking of alcohol. Very unlike him, and said that he would talk to Rena alone but not in the house. That did set off alarm bells. I mean, he somehow tried to win the Best Actor award by trying to appear calm, but he failed miserably. He was trembling and looked bitter. The last thing I could see was Rena's confused expression. She looked at me as if I had revealed the truth. Well, not that I was entirely wrong, but anything goes to prove the truth. She said that she was going to end that relationship for good. But almost 2 weeks later, they're still together? When they return, I'll tell you what happened with them and see if I can finally get my wish for a divorce. Update number 4. If I could wipe Rena off this face of the earth, I would do it in a heartbeat. She told my father about my things. Even though I did everything right, even though it all seemed like it was a fluke and had nothing to do with me, Rena showed me that there can be people who will go so far as to drag others down just so they won't feel so miserable. The previous note was from yesterday, and I stopped crying just now. If I had Rena in front of me, I would smack her in the face. But the coward went to her parents' house while I tried to make my father come to his senses and listen to me. When they talked, or rather when they yelled at each other, there came a moment when Rena came out of nowhere to point at me and then grabbed me by the hair. She starts to shake me, saying that I was the one who had told my father and that I had to confess. My dad tried to defend me at first, but then when Rena saw that I was going to lose, even though I kept saying I didn't know what she's talking about, she told my father all the things about me. All of them. She told him that he should not believe anything a rat like me could tell him and started talking about my faults at school. You know, smoking, hanging out with boys after boys after boys, and neglecting my studies. Thank God she didn't mention the tattoo. I was trying to convince my father, but unfortunately I could not do much because, like Rena, I did confess my crime. I told my father exactly what it's all been doing for these years. But then Rena starts to get into it and ended up making my father so angry that he sent her out of the house and sent me to my room. I tried to have a dialogue with the man, but he seemed to be really drunk and I preferred not to go along with it. Since then, I've tried to talk to him 2 times, but nothing has happened. What I've received are messages from Rena cursing me and saying that I ruined her life, saying that I'm a snitch and that she would make my life miserable with or without my father by her side. She still doesn't see the wrongs of her ways, and she tells me that she was going to break up with her lover in just 2 months. Wait, is that supposed to make me feel better? In just 4 days, they were going to have their anniversary trip, but now I don't know if they're going to make it together, even by the end of the week. I feel like that's what hurts Dad the most, because they invested so much time and money into it, and to see it go up in flames is something that hurts me even more. I would like to get you guys to help me one more time, as now I just don't know what to do and get my father to talk to me again. We have a good relationship, and I don't want that to be ruined because of some stupid cheater. Final updates. Things won't be like they used to be, but in a sense, I'm grateful for this. Rena dragged me to the grave as she talked to my father just to tell him everything she knew about my high school shenanigans, and then put us in a very awkward situation. Guys, it's been 2 months since the last update, and I want to say that things have improved, and there was a very noticeable change in the dynamics that we had. My father and I had a serious conversation, which surprisingly did not include lectures about all the bad things I did. Rather, he focused on telling me that I should not lie. Lies were bad, that the Lord, this and that. That conversation lasted about 4 hours, where he stressed how disappointed he was in me and that the future I was creating was paved with lies and bad acts. That was hard to swallow. However, I had it better than Rena, since she did get what she deserved. Not only did he file for divorce, but Dad managed to use his best lawyers to get her off the hook. You could say that she has less now than back then, and when she first met my dad years ago, that's before I talked to him, telling him about how I was the one who discovered the cheating. And I was trying to find a way to tell him without ruining his anniversary. I trusted Rena's word about breaking her affair, but she let me down, proving that her marriage was never true. He listened to me and understood my position. He didn't share it. He would have preferred that I tell him as soon as I had seen him, even if I wasn't sure about it. But at least he could respect what I did. At least he said that he would continue to pay for my college, but that I would not receive any help upon graduation. According to him, these are merits for me to earn myself, and I'm willing to do that. Rena, at the moment, I don't know where she is. I think she's at her parents' house or something, or at a friend's, or maybe at her lover's, which, by the way, that's my favorite part of the story. From what I've learned about Rena, she was fired. It turns out her job does not allow relationships between company members, let alone when infidelity's involved. The alleged Jack. He was also married with 3 children, so it was sure to be a big deal. Of all things, what I've learned is that father was left with almost everything in divorce. Or, well, he'll definitely get it when it's finalized in a week's time. Instead, the rumor spread throughout the church community, and they labeled Rena as enemy number 1. Almost barring her from entry, which won't be a problem because she per se wasn't very adept. Wow. She was just going after my dad, and as hard as things might be right now, the truth is that I decided to look for a part-time job. It doesn't affect my rehearsals or college, it's just a way of apologizing to my dad so he doesn't have such a big workload. Thanks to everybody who helped me by commenting with their ideas on how I could get back at Rena. Well, it didn't work out perfectly, and there was a lot of consequences. Not because of your ideas, though, it's because of Rena. At least I could get that weight off my shoulders, and I won't have to ignore Rena's existence anymore.